Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. It's Sunday the 13th of April. I'm Phil Carroll.
I'm Kevin Hornsby.
And I'm Charles Archer.
And what a week it's been, lads.
Oh, the week that was.
The week that was.
The week that was the tariff. I'll start with a joke. I saw this meme that came through with a hat, a red hat, "Make America Great Again." And obviously it's made in China. And at the start of the week, it was $25. In the middle of the week, it was $77. And now it's $102 to buy because it's been imported from China.
Brilliant. But see, I've seen a couple of the red light, green light.
Yes.
Right. Red light, tariffs. Green light, on. Investors just getting shot.
You look absolutely knackered, Charles. And not being rude, but I mean, like, have you literally not had much sleep because of this new
days every day? Yeah. I mean, the problem is there's too much. When you're a freelancer, it's feast or famine generally, and when these kind of events happen, you do just go hell for leather for a week or two. But you kind of have to pace yourself a little bit because we're only on day 81, 82 of 1,400 days of Trump. So
yeah, you're getting paid for every word, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, no concerns.
Like a solicitor is paid per word. Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a look at that, because it has literally been one of the most chaotic weeks in the market, certainly that I remember, dominated by the headline-grabbing moves from the Trump camp. Things kicked off on a Monday with the markets crashing globally as investors reacted to the announcement of sweeping new US tariffs, 10% on all imports and a punchy 34% specifically targeting Chinese goods. That sent shockwaves through equities, with the FTSE, Dow and Nikkei all tumbling. Tuesday gave the illusion of a bounce, a classic dead cat rally as traders bought the dip, only for markets to roll over again mid-session when China hit back, vowing to retaliate and calling Trump's moves economic warfare. On that same day, a false report on social media claiming that the US administration was considering a 90-day pause on all tariffs, except those on China. This misinformation was briefly buoyed markets before the White House refuted the claim, causing markets to retract their gains. Subsequently, on April the 9th, President Trump officially announced a 90-day pause on most newly imposed tariffs, maintaining a 10% tariff on imports from most countries, but increasing tariffs on Chinese imports to 125%. This policy reversal triggered a significant rebound in global markets, with the S&P 500 surging 9.5%. Despite the market recovery, concerns persist regarding the unpredictability of trade policies and their potential long-term economic impact. So, I mean, what have we seen as much kind of flip-flopping? The cynic in me says this was all manufactured. It was like, sell-off, buyback, then the fake news, then another sell-off, and then obviously the rally on when this official announcement of this 90-day pause came in. And then where are we now on late Thursday, early Friday, Charles? And we've seen, what we're witnessing right now in the US?
Well, first off, it's not 125%. The tariff is 145%. Because you have done the original, I'm old enough to remember it was about fentanyl.
The fentanyl one, yeah.
Yeah, so 145% tariff. So, thousands and thousands of businesses are toast. I mean, kind of like yesterday, as of when we're recording, obviously there was this bull trap. It shot up, Trump's cronies all make their money, and now they're all making it on the way down as well. But basically,
do you not think Wednesday evening was actually just a short squeeze because there was so many people short on the S&P?
Well,
and Dow and everything else.
I mean, you look at the options activity, as in US style options. 15 minutes before Trump's official announcement, it just went ballistic, right? And the thing is with US style options is you put your money down, and then if your options aren't in the money, you just lose it, all of it, unlike CFDs or spread bets. So you don't put down that amount of money unless you're absolutely certain what's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, possibly short squeeze, but I think mostly just insider buying and selling.
I'm going to say, does this think, I mean, as I say, the cynic in me said this was massively manufactured. I know you wrote something, an article on Substack, which pretty much said the same thing. Is this insider trading, do we think?
Well, 100%, but it depends on your perspective. Let's put this another way, though, because we all kind of operate in the small cap sector generally. If an AIM market CEO, right, put out a tweet saying, this is the time to buy my stock. And then 4 hours later, massive material news was released by RNS. Would that be considered foul play? Obviously, yes. Donald Trump does it.
Would they do anything about it?
Probably not. No. So there's lots of parallels here. But I mean, the classic one is, okay, so this Walter Bloomberg character, whoever he is on Twitter, says there's going to be a 90-day pause, right, on Monday. And then Trump administration, using the US Rapid Response Service, says, no, this is false. After the market shoots up 8% and it loses its gains. 2 days later, they do exactly the same thing. And basically, I mean, my perspective on it is that they did that to see what the market reaction would be before they made their multi-billion-dollar bets.
Yes.
It's as corrupt as it comes. But again, I mean, basically, there's 2 key things here. The first is if you want to make money out of this and trade, then do so. It's risky. But if you want to invest in the longer term, the US has become like a meme stock effectively. And the pension funds, the institutions, the people with serious capital, they might be a bit scared to invest in the US now, or more scared than they were before. There'll be a rebalancing to other safer jurisdictions.
Yeah, no doubt. I said this morning, I think, on one of the groups, it was probably yours, that I think even if we get a 10% of these portfolios rebalance into the UK instead of 60, 70, 80% US, it now becomes, 50, 60% US and 10% in the UK, then that's going to make a material difference to what's going to happen in the UK. And why should you invest in the UK when it's the cheapest stock market on the planet near enough, as we stand?
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you? I mean, if you look at the past 12, 24 months, private equity has just been buying UK mid-cap stocks, or even the AIM stocks, the larger ones, just buying them because they're so cheap. And in the UK market, kind of unique to anywhere else, you've got companies like Power Metal Resources, you guys will know really well, where the balance sheet is far in excess of the market cap. And the same thing with Tech Capital and Microsoft, or, what's another good example? Bazant.
Bazant is a very good example.
Yeah, and their shareholders.
It's like double nearly.
Yeah, so, there's a few, those are just 3 off the top of my head, but there's dozens of them where the balance sheet is more than the market cap. So when people come seeking value, they're going to look down here. It's pretty simple. It doesn't mean that, all of the money in the large caps comes to the small caps. That's ridiculous. But you only need maybe 2% of it.
Yeah, maybe not even 2%.
Maybe not even 2, yeah. But that's what I'm guessing.
Fractions of percentage would be enough. I mean, the scenario is, though, what reputational damage do you think Trump has done this week with playing with everybody's money and everybody's emotions this week?
Well, an incredible amount. I mean, I kind of think butterfly effect. I mean, Haley Welch, spit on that thing, that crypto coin that she launched.
The Hawk Tour girl.
The Hawk Tour, yeah. Phil knows her well. But she launched that crypto coin, right? And then she rug pulled. And then Trump had an idea. He was like, I can do the same thing with my own crypto coin. But cryptocurrency is unregulated. And when Trump did the Trump coin, I mean, everyone knew it was a pump and dump scheme. So if you went in and made some money, great. If you lost loads of money, that's on you. But then he set his sights higher. And he thought, hang on, if I can do it with this Trump coin, and Elon can do it with Tesla, how can I not do this with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ? And he has. And the problem you have now is that the entire US market at the moment is trading based on Donald Trump's Truth Social account. He puts out a tweet saying, all tariffs gone, market will roar 20%. If he puts out a tweet saying, we're never going to stop fighting against China, it will drop 20%. And so you have the situation where multi-trillion-dollar valuations are being bandied about based on one person's opinion, which is never how the US Constitution was meant to be set up. But more importantly, US equity is now no longer a reliable store of value. And so obviously retail traders make your money, sure, but again, it's the institutions. If you're a pension fund and you need to make sure you can pay out your liabilities month after month, year after year, the US is definitely somewhere where you're going to invest, but you're not going to go as thoroughly into it anymore. And that's the biggest problem that you have. It's the reputational damage is extreme.
But the reputation also, Charles, I mean, I like some of the rhetoric that he used and the comments. I mean, his statement was, these countries are calling us up, kissing my arse. I mean, and then please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir. I mean, this is sort of like you don't talk to other world leaders in this way, do you? You know, as Kev says, the reputational damage has already been done when he opens his mouth, surely.
Well, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. The White House says this, It's kind of Yeah, my first thought when I saw it was, you guys have children. Like I've got three, and my youngest two are 4 and 6. And when the 4-year-old hits the 6-year-old, that's what I tell them: don't retaliate, we'll reward you later.
Yes.
But he kind of evoke the spirit of Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr., but he's the aggressor, not the non-aggressor. But I think, forget Trump. I mean, JD Vance, right? This is the vice president. So if Trump does decide to, kick the bucket, which is not impossible, he's an old man and not great health. JD Vance told Fox News, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things these Chinese peasants manufacture. Now, I'm not sure about you, but that's really not something you want to say to somebody you're about to go into a negotiation with.
No.
And since then, the man shut up and left the scene. I mean, Elon he's gone. I'm not sure if you noticed on social media, kind of vanished.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think things are changing a little bit. I mean, the only good news we have from this week is that Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan is pretty much in charge of the US now, which helps. Yeah. And if you're going to have a backseat driver, I'd rather have Jamie than Elon.
Yeah, let's look at it a little bit from a different angle from this side of the pond. How has it affected the FTSE? Obviously, we see the trading just under the 8,000 mark, which is a kind of barometer of where we were. I want to ask you a couple of things. Firstly, people who are checking their pensions potentially might get a bit of a fright in the last, week or last 10 days. They'll maybe 10% down or whatever it is, the number. What would you say to someone? Obviously, we talked about looking the long term. Obviously, anyway, it's only going to really affect people who are potentially going to be taking maybe a lump sum 25% right now at this time. Potentially, hold out for that, hold out for a rebound in the market. But also, what does this message? We've had Rachel Reeves in the past say, "Oh, we're going to scrap ISAs, cash ISAs. We're going to reduce the amount, maybe 4,000. We're going to try and push people to invest in stocks and shares ISAs." But are people going to are they going to have an appetite for investing when they see stock markets tumbling around the world?
Well, I think basically, I mean, if you invest with IG now or Trading 212 or, most providers now, if you keep your cash in a stocks and shares ISA, you'll be paid interest anyway. So, I mean, mostly if I was Rachel Reeves, I would just get rid of the cash ISA. And if people want to just save in cash, they can just do that through the stocks and shares ISA regardless. And then they'll probably find money market funds, which are very close to risk-free and pay slightly more, and then they'll probably get into investing anyway. In terms of the mindset, I mean, yes, FTSE 100 investors, for example, the FTSE 100, as we record, is now flat over the past 12 months. If you've been investing for retirement over the past 40 years, I suggest that the growth that you've experienced has been far better than if you had saved in cash over that period. However, when you get close to retirement, and this is not financial advice, but it's pretty generalized opinion. If you're close to retirement, you reduce your exposure to equities. The equities that you do have, you want to have defensive stocks, utilities, defense, etc. And then you want to go more into bonds and maybe have a bit of cash. And then the only other problem, we talk about specific rules with pensions. The rules around inheritance tax around pensions, for example, it's changed very recently to the extent that anyone from a few days ago. Now, if you die with a pension intact, your inheritors could be paying a tax of up to 70% or so. It was previously inheritance tax free.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the 25% lump sum. In the very near term, I think that's safe. Over the term of this Labour government, is there a chance that gets reduced or scrapped entirely, especially with Torsten Bell? Yeah, I think there is. So you also have to weigh that.
Your mate.
Well, let's think. Yeah, I mean, let's think about it. Let's say you've got a £2 million pension pot, for example, and you say the 25% is actually limited to around 250 grand. Do you want to withdraw that capital tax-free right now, or do you want to risk, the market's recovering a little bit? But then what if everything that course in the next 2 years? But then what if they get rid of that perk? And this is the wider problem for pension planning. You have no idea what rules you're going to be dealing with when you come to it.
In a SIP, you can take that cash out anyway and continue to be in the market. But
but it is.
I think that we're obviously talking about the stock market, but the mega money is in the bond market.
Mm-hmm.
The big institutions, the $37 trillion that the US have as T-bills, if you like. What happened the night before, on the Tuesday night, I think, was that there was a T-bill sale, $57 billion, I think it was. Didn't go very well. And effectively, all the normal players said, stuff you, we're pulling out. They struggled to get it away. And I believe at that point, Trump was probably given a tap on the shoulder. You need to do something, because $57 billion when you need to refinance $7 to $9 billion in the next few months is going to be a major problem. And if it's a major problem and they end up having to pay more for that finance, what position does that put the US government in? It is bankrupt, basically.
Yeah, well, I think basically, I mean, the Treasuries, the 10-year yield just keeps bouncing around up and down because of the uncertainty. But the basic problem that you have is that the three largest creditors of US debt is the UK, which is precarious for us because we're not going to sell into it. But then that means we're the bag holders of it. You've got Japan and you've got China. Now, the problem is that Japan and China can just choose not to buy, which is why you have a muted auction a couple of days ago, as you mentioned. But also they could also just choose to massively sell. And the concern for the US now is that if the US and China sell their US debt and then use the proceeds to buy euros because they want to get closer to Europe as a trading partner. And that's where the US comes into a big problem in terms of hegemony of the US dollar, but also just its power. Its power is the world power.
Yeah. I mean, the world currency is the US dollar. Do you think this week has basically undermined that to an extent that it probably, we'll look back in a few years and say that's when it started. That's when it
Well, I mean, I've told you before that I think we'll be going back to the gold standard anyway, and then the US dollar will retain its status. But the damage that will be done, on a personal level during that time is going to be enormous. I don't think it's very easy to replace the US dollar, if not potentially. Obviously, it will at some point in the future. Time goes on forever, but in the near future, very, very difficult. What you might find is that other stores of value like the Swiss franc or the euro become more popular. But I honestly, I think the things with Forex is that it's such big questions, it's virtually impossible to answer that one.
And any reason why you think gold has hit its all-time high again?
Well, because it's really simple. There are three stores of value. There's the US Treasuries, which again, US debt, which is jumping around all over the place, and the US is now becoming more and more uncertain. There's Bitcoin, which again is just a hedge. It is just effectively aligned with the NASDAQ now. So, it's just a play on tech stocks, really. If you get, if there's a real recession, what's going to happen to Bitcoin? We know what's going to happen. It's going to crash because people will sell. And that leaves gold. Now, the really interesting thing with gold going forward, there's two things. The first is gold is at a new record high. Could it hit more and more record highs? I mean, I suspect so. But if you have massive liquidity requirements and margin calls, what's the one thing that you can sell and get cash for instantly? The only thing is gold. Yeah. So will the demand for the gold being sold be higher than the selling in the event of a crisis? I honestly don't know.
I don't think within the retail sector there's enough gold being held
it's institutions.
It's institutions and governments, and they ain't selling. They're buying.
However, regardless of any of that, oil is what, $60 below, crashing.
The lowest it's been since 2021, hasn't it?
Because people are expecting a recession, right? Yeah. The US Treasury is bouncing around all over the place. If you're a gold miner with an all-in sustaining cost under $1,000, right, and that's what you've told people, and that was when oil was $80, and oil was 50% of your all-in sustaining costs, which is about average, and gold is now at a record high, then your margins, potentially have improved by 10, 20, in some cases 30%. If your all-in sustaining cost was $2,000, that could have dropped by several hundred. Yeah. So we have the situation where the gold miners are being massively underpriced, and either they're going to rocket over the next 12 months, or oil is going to soar, which seems unlikely currently, or gold is going to crash. And those are the only three choices. And my guess is the gold miners are going to do very well.
Yeah.
Oil's not going to soar. Donald, drill, baby, drill.
Can he? Because if it's at $60, they're not drill, baby, drill. They're cap, baby, cap, Kev. They can't get it out of the ground comfortably.
Yeah.
This is true, but if the demand for the oil decreases because we do go into some sort of recession. I mean, we were having this discussion on the group with a few people as well. I don't see with this almost heart attack shock to the financial system that we don't have some form of recession, even if it's a very quick one, because it's like we've had to put the electric paddles on the financial system because of what's happened. So we've had to like to jerk the thing back to life and say, and what happens after you have that heart attack is you stop and you consider and you think about what the best way to do things is, which means you don't do anything most of the time.
Hey, can I tell you something funny? So, you know how the US still has the 25% tariffs on all cars coming outside of the US? China and the European Union, this is in the last couple of minutes, bearing in mind everyone listening the time we're recording, they've just begun negotiations to eliminate EU tariffs on Chinese EVs. So the US has massively ramped up the tariffs, and the EU has decided, you know what, we're just going to have all those cheap cars and turbo boost our economy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said would happen, because China has got to look for another, what is it, $430 billion worth of shipments that they need to. Who are they going to want to send it to? They're going to send it to America, where it's.
Well, you know, even car parts, you know, from I think it's the 5th of May, they're going to become under tariffs. Not just the cars, the parts as well in the US. I mean, the other thing is, if you're an automobile manufacturer, are you far better off moving to Mexico, for example, building the cars in Mexico and then shipping them over the border to the US? Yeah, you might have to pay a 10% tariff, but okay, but you know, forgetting all of that, let's say you are in charge of those manufacturing decisions. How the hell are you going to make a decision with Trump in charge?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, where are you going
to I think what he's done more than anything is he has made himself completely untrustworthy. And he has also said to everybody, I'm the boss. You do what I say or else.
Yeah.
Because that's the way he put
China's not having any of it, basically. They're not having any of it.
The scenario is that those cultures will not respond to any of that. They will not. And even Europe as well. Europe is the same. Europe's basically saying, okay, we don't want to go offside with you, but as you've just said, Charles, now we're quite happy to take cheap EVs from China.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask one other thing. Cash is king. It always gets bandied around. We obviously saw, as of April 2025, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway holding approximately $345 billion in cash and cash equivalent, nearly double the amount from the previous year and representing about 53% of the company's net assets. So, I mean, should we have all listened? I mean, you probably did, Charles, but should everybody have gone half cash?
Listen, at the start of the year, when I wrote a fairly bearish article, and I did talk about tariffs very briefly, but I didn't think Trump would go this insane. One of the key red flag indicators I highlighted was the fact that retail investors were piling into the market. But company insiders, Nvidia, at Tesla, at Meta, were all selling, Amazon. And so when the insiders and the management are all selling, the CEOs, the CFOs, people at the very top are all selling, and retailers all buying, that should tell you something, you know? And then, you know, a month ago, all the hedge funds started selling, and the retail was still buying. And even into these bull traps, right now, the hedge funds are all selling, and retail is still buying. So, you know, if listening to Warren Buffett, I mean, it depends on your perspective. The man has always been anti-gold, for example. But if you go back over the past 30 years, gold has now equaled Berkshire Hathaway's performance.
Yes.
And there's been a number of examples where he's done pretty poorly. Overall, though, he's done extremely well. You know, we're just three guys. He's a multi-billionaire. But should we have listened to him? I mean, is it a good idea not to listen to him? He seems to get many, many things right. But, you know...
Yeah, the difference is in mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Warren Buffett plays an eternal game. In other words, he's not interested in the next 5 minutes or the next 5 days or the next 5 years even. He is looking for businesses that have an economic moat and can last for generations. That's what he's after.
True,
and that's how he invests.
Why would he dematerialize his positions to be 53% cash if he was like the mindset, oh, I'll just ride it out, it will bounce back, it will recover, you know, the sort of cyclical thing. He wants his money in cash because he's going to be buying the bargains when the market crashes, effectively.
The scenario was that he sold a huge chunk of Apple because he bought in at $76 and sold it at whatever, and he thought Apple was overvalued. And he was right.
No,
He still
no,
holds
no.
$73.6 billion in Apple and 45 billion in American Express and 30 in the Bank of America. So yeah, his holdings are just massive.
I'll have to disagree. One thing that I should say though is that when he was asked about the massive cash position and selling the Apple shares a few months ago, he said that the US corporate taxes were at one of their lowest they've ever been, and therefore realizing the gains made a lot of sense because he felt the corporate taxes would go higher rather than the stocks would crash, which is interesting.
Clever, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, basically, Buffett is generally when he is piling into cash and getting out of the market, mostly, you kind of want to pay attention as a general rule. And every time you think he's wrong, he's been right. I mean, the other thing is that it sounds a bit morbid. He's a very old man. The assumption is when he dies, whether this is true or not, that Berkshire Hathaway will fall and they'll use a lot of the capital to buy shares back.
Well, Charlie passed away, didn't he? Charlie Munger.
And it didn't do particularly much. But Warren's name is the name attached to it, in exactly the same way as if Elon Musk died tomorrow, no, we don't hope this happens, but if he did die tomorrow, then Tesla stock would probably crater just because the personal brand name is the same with Berkshire Hathaway in many ways.
Okay, let's move on to our guest this week. We're delighted to be joined by Alex Stanbury, CEO of Technology Minerals. Welcome back to the podcast, Alex. How's things?
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, good to be here. Yeah, very good, thank you. We've had a really solid couple of weeks.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, obviously, before we move on to this contract news, I want to get your take on what has pretty much dominated the headlines for the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. Is this Trump tariffs, and given the recent escalation in these trade tensions, with the US imposing significant tariffs on these Chinese imports and China's subsequent restrictions on these critical mineral exports, which obviously includes rare earths, vital for battery production. How do you foresee these developments impacting the global supply chain for materials like black mass? And additionally, what strategies is Recyclus considering to navigate potential challenges in exporting recycled battery materials amid this evolving trade landscape?
Take your time with that one, Alex. If you can answer that in no more than 20 words, it would be good.
Very, very good question. Well, I mean, with a flick of the pen, the Chinese exports of rare earth materials to the US stop, and we know how reliant the US are on these materials for their defense and the rest of it. So yeah, it is seemingly problematic. Quite how this unfolds is yet to be seen, but certainly from a European standpoint, this whole supply chain that is trying to be built in Europe should benefit from this, and in the US as well. But on the raw material side, we all know how long it takes to actually build a mine. So things that happen in this administration can help fund. But the reality, unless you're very close to production, then you're not getting anything out of the ground in this administration, unless of course he manages to extend, which I'm sure we all know is on the agenda. But in terms of the black mass side of things, I don't see that it's going to make a massive difference at the moment. That I don't think the Europeans are sending black mass or sending materials into the US for battery manufacturing. I think what we're sending is going into Europe. It may well push the prices of these commodities north, and which obviously, considering where the price of black mass sits with us today, I mean, it's a fraction of when we started this business due to the Chinese interference in the markets, especially around lithium and nickel. So we would be very pleased to see an increase in the value of our black mass. At the moment, our business model is skewed towards our gate fees, and some redress and balance there would be good. And also, it's obviously had a major effect on the international and global mining industry, which has obviously been dominated by the Chinese as well, and it's stopped an awful lot of early stage both exploration and development happening because of the prices of these minerals, and it just simply becomes non-feasible from a bankability side of things when the price of lithium, etc., is where it is. I mean, cobalt's had a good bounce this year, but yeah, from our perspective, higher prices on these materials and more Euro focus would certainly be good. We have obviously our project in Spain, which is a key project with copper and nickel in it, right in the heart of the EU. And it's a very large very large project we've got there, with further land being added to it all the time, as all the licenses we've applied for are coming and being granted. So that falls right in the middle of the EU's critical minerals strategy. So, from that perspective, again, that should make it an awful lot easier to get funding for, and to be able to push up the value curve and bring in a really good sized JV partner.
Yeah, and just talking about that, you alluded to the licenses there, your property in Spain, but how important is it to have these assets in the likes of the US and Spain? Obviously, we've seen the disposal of Leinster and everything, but just how important do you think it is in this current time to have assets like that?
I think really important. Yeah, the West has been very reliant on China, inadvertently, and looking at one side of the supply chain and then forgetting about the other side. So which really is nonsensical. And then because of the short-termism of the capital markets, I think there's an awful lot of money hasn't gone into the early stage exploration. But the European Union is certainly pulling its socks up in that respect, and really understanding that this sort of battery supply chain is something it needs to get thoroughly on top of before the race is lost entirely to China. So I think for those with critical minerals projects in Europe, this should be very good timing. Yeah.
Mm. So let's move on to the recent news. Obviously, we saw the company recently announced that its 48.35% owned battery recycling business, Recyclus Group, has signed its largest contract to date, a 12-month agreement with a global industrial group to recycle lithium-ion batteries at its Wolverhampton facility. The deal includes gate fees for battery intake and revenue from selling recovered materials such as black mass, with potential revenues up to £2 million. This contract marks another step in Recyclus' commercial growth and industry recognition as it continues to expand its cradle-to-cradle battery recycling solutions. Just tell us more, please, Alex, about this contract.
I'd love to tell you all about it, but I can't. There's only so much I can tell you. But yeah, from Recyclus' perspective, it's a very, very big day, a very proud sort of moment in time to be able to sign a 12-month contract with a global player like this. It really goes to show all the hard work that's been put in up at plant by the team, and the development of that business has really paid off, because it's a serious undertaking to be able to pass audit and I suppose, get the respect of them and the trust of a global company like that to deal with a problem that they have, and they are they're ESG focused. So as I say, it's no mean feat. Yeah, it really is a testament to the team, and it's coming at a time where Recyclus is managing to get an increased amount of in-feed on a monthly basis. March was our highest in-feed, highest process number, and highest revenue to date, and we're looking to beat that again in April. So we're really proud of what's going on there, and there's an awful lot of learning on a continual basis. This is a new industry globally, really, apart from so the Chinese have been at it quite a lot longer, but certainly in the West and certainly for us. So there's an awful lot of learning and an awful lot of achieving on a weekly basis, and we have a great team.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you add a bit of colour onto how this deal might influence the scale of operations at the Wolverhampton facility, and whether it brings any expansion or capacity planning initiatives?
Yeah, well, the key here is of this phase of our development really is about going from being loss-making to profitability, and this contract comes with ramping volumes. So as the volumes increase, that will take us to profitability, and that obviously makes a massive difference to the company, our ability to expand, our ability to spend capital. So once we are into profitability, we can then start to focus on what else we need to do in terms of expanding our discharge dismantle units, spending further capital on the plant itself, and then looking for a site 2 or at a site 2 to keep this UK dominant position.
So Alex, well done, because I think this is a big step forward, obviously, for Recyclus and Tech Minerals in unison. How do you see this affecting your ability to get other contracts? Because obviously we're talking about a major player who's now signed up. How are you going to get the next 2 or 3 major players? Because ultimately that's what you need to get up to this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 tons per annum, which is required at least.
Indeed, I think with the contract we've got, there's scope to grow with the company. So we prove that we're doing the job they need us to do, I think there's scope for an elongation of contract and also for an increase in volume through. And I think in the confidence that brings both internally and externally to what we can do at Recyclus should really help cement further contracts as well. You know, we are in constant conversation with large players about what we do, and you know, there is a long gestation period always when you're dealing with corporates of this size. They need to be very sure about you, and they also have an awful lot of internal process to go through. So there are other things on the table that we would hope to be able to convert in the sort of, you know, near to medium term that will continue to, you know, add serious volume. But as it goes, we are adding clients on a weekly basis to what we do, and you know, and as I said, the kind of the base sort of number of batteries volume coming through each month is growing in double digits month on month. So you know, it's really just continuing to push, continuing to prove what we can do, and continuing to earn trust, and also pick up the phone. You know, it's the lifeblood of our business is batteries. So you know, it's really, there's a big sales push here as well. And as much as we'd like everyone in the UK to know who we are, you know, you still often come across people that should know who we are that don't.
There you go. Anyone who's listening, there's an invite to send some specs your way.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You know, we do speak to people that even in the industry who haven't heard of us. And obviously our marketing budgets are tight and all the rest of it because we're pre-profitability. But it's really about education and getting our names out there and understanding these large corporates, understanding that we can solve a problem for them. You know, they've often sent batteries to other places or been told that they're going to be recycled, and they've ended up abroad or ended up stored in warehouses, and it hasn't done the job. So they're all becoming aware now as well that actually it needs to go to a proper recycler who can certify the end of life, and that takes care of their full ESG and takes care of and has brand protection for them again. So it's really, you know, that's key.
Alex, when we first started this journey a couple of years ago, or more, obviously you've been doing it a lot longer than a couple of years, but when you came onto the market a couple of years ago, I think, you know, we were all waiting for the licenses to come, and then the licenses took forever, and we can all look back and go, oh my goodness. And then we thought there would be, and I think you thought as well, that there would be a flood of batteries and a queue of people who wanted to recycle these batteries. Why do you think that didn't happen in the way that you thought it was going to?
Yeah, if I look back on the first model we built, like many models, it's not really worth the paper it's printed on or the time spent on it. But you've got to start somewhere and adapt and learn. We did think that you know, we would build it and we would cut the ribbon, and been an awful lot of work in between here and there. Why did it not happen? Education from our side, education for people with batteries, people with the batteries actually focusing on getting rid of their batteries in an ESG sound way, and also brand protective way. This is all new to them as well. If you think about most people we're dealing with, you know, the getting rid of their batteries safely is not their business. You know, their business is selling whatever it may be, and everyone is struggling in this economy to make a penny. So they're focused on the sales side. Then the batteries start to come back, and they're problematic, and they're put over there, you know, to the side to be forgotten about until they become problematic. And it's somebody's had a fire, or somebody they know has had a fire, and suddenly it's like, oh, actually these are quite dangerous, because a lot of people didn't even know that how volatile these batteries were. And at that point they start to wake up, and they're like, well, okay, we need to deal with this. So the whole thing, you know, this is not an old industry. You know, large format batteries are a pretty new industry, and everyone is focused on something else. And we're trying to tell them that they need to be focused on the safety side and getting rid of these batteries, and they're going to be charged for it again.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is really the sticking point. I mean, if you didn't have any fees coming in and just say, give me all your batteries, then you probably would have a queue. But the reality is it costs to recycle these things. So companies starting to realize that they've got to factor in this cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Most of them are absolutely fine with it and quite happy with it. You know, they understand that it's now a factored in cost to everything they do, and there's money on the balance sheet for it. So, but yeah, again, it takes time for them to adjust to the new business model, to understand it, and then to realize there's a problem, to find the person to deal with it, and then make sure they're actually dealing with the right people who actually deal with it. So gestation, trust, auditing. There's a long list. And there's some other idiosyncratic kind of reasons in the smaller batteries market as well, to do with compliance schemes, but we started working with those now as well. And it just takes time, quite frankly. But it's great that the traction is coming, and we are increasing our volumes steadily. It's, as I said, it's a learning curve.
Another question just about volume of batteries, because even though they're minute, I think, in size, what has happened to the grants you receive for producing effectively almost like a bin lorry type situation where you would recycle the vapes or the small products?
Yeah, we're still working on that, making good progress. At the moment, it's at a stage where we're discussing with the permitting side of it to make sure that, because it's a totally different way of permitting. Permits are normally for a site. And this is obviously mobile, so it's making sure that we can prove that everything we're doing is safe, etc. So that then it can either go to have a mobile permit that can then go to a has waste site, be it a municipal site or whatever. Rather than these are the conversations going on at the moment.
So the thing is developed and ready to go, or not?
What are we now? 20 months into a 36-month program, I think it is. So yeah, it's still in development and coming along.
Okay. And from the point of view of overall generation of batteries over a period of time, do you see that the UK will be the only place that you get batteries from, or you have the opportunity to collect batteries from Europe and have them recycled and sent back or kept within the UK economy? Because the whole point behind this situation was circular, as in, we kept the black mass within what was at that time maybe the European Union, and now the UK itself.
Yeah, it's a kind of ever evolving answer to that question, I guess. I guess there's the short term as well, and then the medium term and the long term. In the long term, if there's a battery recycling centre nearer to where the batteries are, that's probably where they should go. I don't really believe that any waste should be transported across, a body of water or across borders unnecessarily. So we're now dealing with a situation where there aren't all those recycling plants, so they do need to move. So in the short term, yes, we are having discussions with a couple of clients about pan-European collections, and we did sign a contract last year that brings some batteries in. It's a UK contract, but it brings some batteries in from a foreign destination as well. But the way the protectionism side is going, there's the kind of the ESG side and the carbon footprint side, and then there's the where do you want your black mass to be, and where do you want your batteries to be? Well, batteries are sort of the source of your raw material. You want to keep them in the EU or in the UK, don't you? So at the moment, the classifications for batteries being waste and black mass being hazardous waste make them more and more difficult to transport across borders, and I think that's only going to get stricter. And then certainly when you're coming out of the UK as well, the increasing number of battery fires is still very much up to a ship's captain whether he wants to take any lithium-ion on board, waste lithium-ion. And I think again, I think the UK will tighten up the battery export side, because from a defence and just perspective and critical metals perspective, if you've got the recycling here, you've got the ability to take it to the next stage of into metal salts and then into PCAM and CAM, and you've got the likes of Agritas building a gigafactory here, and you've got AUSC in the north, and you've got the guys coming to Coventry Airport. Well, they all need recycled material, so you'd make sure your entire battery supply chain can be fed from here. At the moment, certainly, I think some of the Asian automakers are sending their batteries back over the seas, and I think the UK government will tighten that up, so it'll all have to be dealt with here.
So do you anticipate that some of those things you mentioned, like the gigafactory and the thing at Coventry, are actually going to give you some batteries to recycle as well? Not necessarily you're definitely going to get a contract with them. I'm just saying this is going to put more batteries in the system.
Yeah, well, I mean, every car that lands on these shores is a battery in the system, and every battery that's manufactured on these shores is a battery in the system. So, and that's without taking into account battery scrap. which is anything that's coming off the manufacturing lines before it gets to the end. And the battery scrap side is huge. A gigafactory in its first year gives off an unholy amount of scrap. And then still, when it's sort of finely tuned, I think it's still down to sort of around probably north of 5%. And when you're talking about a 40 gigawatt hour gigafactory, that's an awful lot of scrap. So yeah, it does mean there's a lot more material to go around as well. And it's of a slightly different nature, but it's very pure, and it gives very high quality and an awful lot of black mass, because we haven't got to the stage where it's got casings all around it, etc. So yes,
I think, Alex, that there's going to be, like, with this whole Chinese 125% tariff, unless there's some relaxing of that, there's going to be a glut more of Chinese EVs coming to these shores, because they're going to be looking for a whole new area to, $430 billion worth of Chinese exports in vehicles goes into the US. There's no way they're going to be taking them there with 125% increase on the tariff.
No, I mean it's really interesting, isn't it? You look at the prices of the Chinese, the Chinese EVs, they are considerably lower than the Western counterparts. I haven't done the analysis or to see what happens when you whack a tariff on that big, and now whether they're wholly uncompetitive, but I imagine they're probably now similarly priced. And then they are producing some amazing vehicles as well. But yes, it may mean that there are more that land up on these shores, but the UK government's very cognizant of that as well. And we have an automotive manufacturing sector here, and there is also, obviously a lot of the Western brands that dominate at the moment in the UK. But I think the consumer's becoming less brand oriented once they've switched over to EV. I think the competition is incredibly stiff. This incredible leapfrog really by the Eastern automakers, where German manufacturing and technology was the king, and then suddenly an EV has become a battery and a computer, and they are dominating battery technology and cost massively, and they're also from the tech side they're dominating as well. So the strengths that the Germans etc. had before, I think are no longer applicable. Yeah. And once people are swapped into the EV market, I think they care less about whether it's a Mercedes or a BMW.
I think BYD are dominating battery technology now, aren't they? BYD have got this new supercharging battery that I think it can like top up into about 2.5-3 minutes, which is going to kill that, And that, I think Charles raised a good point last time he was on. He mentioned that he does doubt like how much less life are you going to get out of a battery that can discharge and charge that much quicker. It'd be interesting to see whether they have less battery life now.
They know what they're doing. They're the best in the world, and they're also vertically integrated. So there's no competition on cost in that respect. If you've got a battery manufacturer who's trying to sell to somebody else who's then got unionized labor, and on it goes. It's a
it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Really.
Very different.
Anyway, just as a last point, coming on now to the mining assets that you have within technology minerals. Obviously, we had the lithium sale, which has gone through now, thank goodness. But we've had a collapse in that share price, which obviously means ultimately those shares are worth significantly less. And what progress do you think is going to be made in Spain? And what other assets are then still left within technology minerals that could be of financial benefit to the company?
Sure. Just starting with the Irish side, I guess. Yes, the consideration shares are worth considerably less than when we did the deal. I do have full belief in critical metals as a stock. Tony Sage has got a vehicle there with this rare earth Tanbury's project that is in Greenland. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, looking at the main rare earth issues that face the US, with these China tariffs and the Chinese, being the main supplier of rare earth elements to the US, that should put that project squarely into the sights of the US. So I think one of the reasons that the share price has decreased so much is your typical, structuring issues that come with when you do a deal with a SPAC, and you've got your initial shareholders who have got nothing to do with the project side of it, that then just take their money and disappear. So that you're then left with a company side of it, and once those guys are all out, I think there should be good reason for that stock to rebound. Obviously, from our perspective, we'd love to sit on that stock as long as possible, but we do have things that we need to balance internally as well. So, in terms of Spain is a fantastic project. We are actively marketing it, but we're also actively pushing it up the value curve as well. As I said, with everything that's going on in the critical mineral space in the EU, this should be a really, really prime project. It is a really prime project. We just need to do a little bit more work on it to prove up structure. And we want to get these other parts of the license granted, which is all in process. So we have at the moment a very large land package, but we've got various other licenses that are just coming through the review and will then be granted. And when they're granted, I think we have an extremely investable project.
Very good. I think on that note, we'll just say, Alex Stanbury, thanks very much for appearing back on the podcast. It's great to hear your insights.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Kevin. Pleasure to be with you.
Thanks, Alex, for coming on.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been great to have you back on, Charles, and obviously we thank Alex Stanbury, and we're going to have a couple of weeks break over Easter, well-deserved break now. We've got a couple of bank holidays coming up in the UK, so anyone got anything planned?
I'm going to Lebanon to walk
Wow.
on a challenge. Yeah, so you can say a little prayer for me that the Israeli war doesn't start in the next week again.
You're not going anywhere near the border, are you? I mean, I suppose you're in Beirut, are you? Are you flying into Beirut?
I'm flying into Beirut, but it'll be up in the mountains that will be. So it's a challenge that we're going on for 4 days, I think it is. You walk X kilometers each day, and you have to do certain challenges and stuff. I'm actually leading a team, so that should be interesting, of youth people. So yeah, obviously everybody thinks I'm insane going to Lebanon at this moment in time.
What distances? I mean, have you got all the walks planned and routes?
Yeah, the longest distance in a day, I think, is between 20 and 25 kilometers, depending on whether you get lost or not, because you basically got guidance and you've got to guide your way through, and that's part of the challenge. So I think it's going to be I think the first day is maybe only 10 or 12 kilometers, and then works its way up. And then the second to last day is the biggest day, and then the last day is a morning of walk, and then yeah, everybody has a recap of what's going on then, or what you learned from the thing. Yeah. So it's a thing about finding a little bit about yourself as well. So self-discovery. Yeah. I mean, it's a Christian thing done with the King's Kids, which is something that is in Egypt and Lebanon. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So I've been trying to walk and to go to the gym each day for the last couple of weeks. And Charles, you look like you need to go for a long walk because your eyes look like piss holes in the snow, I have to say.
What are you doing, Charles? Have you got any? Are you going to have a sort of well-deserved break with your family?
I'm gonna, after Kevin's story, I'm gonna watch that one episode. Do you remember when Richard Hammond crashed in Top Gear? And they were like, Richard Hammond has crashed, and he went anyway and just continued the show, just in case it all goes wrong. But hopefully he'll be fine. I'm going to the beach tomorrow. I'm done. I think I've had enough of work. I'm gonna sit on the beach. I'm gonna have an ice cream, and I'm just gonna sleep probably for about 10 hours, and then after that I'll probably enjoy a bit of Easter holidays, because I think we've got to the point now where the chaos is going to be going for quite a long time, and we don't know what's going to happen from minute to minute. There comes a point you just need to calm down a little bit.
There's one thing you've got to remember: it's completely out of our control, so there's nothing we can do. So there's no point in stressing too much about it. I know it's easy to say that when finances and money is involved, but at the end of the day, that's the reality of the situation. Got a few sporting events coming up. We've got the boat race this weekend as well, the historic race, Oxford, Cambridge. Who are you going with?
No idea.
No idea.
Masters
tournament, Kev. Are we thinking
Masters tournament? I want to watch that for sure. I'm thinking, Brooks Koepka or DeChambeau, and Bryson DeChambeau. McIlroy's had a good start to the year as well, so you never know.
Scotty
Scheffler, Scotty Scheffler's the favourite.
Yeah.
If McIlroy doesn't bottle it, he's got a good chance, but he seems to have bottled it a couple of times. Obviously, the US Open last year with DeChambeau, where he basically two-putted from less than 3 feet. I think it was twice or 3 times on the back nine coming in. So if he doesn't bottle it, then yeah, it would be good to see him, because he would complete the golf Grand Slam, all 4 majors. So that would be good. We've got to have a shout out for Mr. Rice's right after those 2 epic free kicks, and Arsenal beating Real Madrid 3-0. And I think Aston Villa did pretty well, did they not, against PSG as well? What was the final score?
They got
3-1.
3-1, yeah, I think it was
3-1, though they did take a lead, and I thought they were in with a good shout. But so it's all going to be interesting in the Champions League over the next few weeks. We'll see who's going to be semi-finalists and then finalists. But I was looking at some of the odds, and it was basically saying Arsenal were now the favourites to win the Champions League. So get your money on. There's a very, very good chance they won't win it.
It was super fun on Twitter during that Arsenal game. People going, "What am I watching? This is insane. I never imagined this would happen." At the same time as the US markets were crashing. So I made a mistake. I was like, it's fine. It'll be a bull market later. It's no worries. It's amazing how many of the football metaphors can apply to the stock market.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point to finish on. Whenever we've seen crashes, whatever period of time they've come over, the markets in general have recovered and gone higher within 18 to 36 months on pretty much every occasion. Yeah, I don't remember what it was in the 1930s when we had the Great Depression, but I was having that conversation with someone as well, that these situations could cause this. They really could cause another depression, not a recession. But let's hope everybody steps back from the brink and that actually doesn't happen. Yeah, and go and buy some gold coins, because as Rick Roll says, it could be $10,000.
Good. Well, on that note, we say thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe, hit the bell icon for future notifications of further episodes, and have a great weekend and have a great Easter as well. Don't forget, 2 weeks off.
Yeah. Happy Easter, everybody. Don't eat too many Easter eggs.
Yeah, don't eat too many Freddos, sorry.
No, you can't. No one can afford them anymore.
Nobody can afford the Easter eggs anymore. How much is a cream egg these days? Oh, my goodness gracious me. It's over £1 for a cream egg now, isn't it?
I think a local shop is like 90p, but the thing is, it's not Cadbury chocolate. They've changed it to like a few years ago, crappy chocolate mix. You used to get 5 in the bar. Do you know what? I don't have time. Tired. We're not doing this today. Have a wonderful holiday, gents.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.